the world's economy in a bit of turmoil and the stock markets crashing with fears of the coronavirus and a world recession, interestingly, the Australian property markets, and particularly our big capital city property markets, are performing very strongly. The most recent figures suggest that a number of our capital cities are growing at, well, what would be double-digit growth over a 12-month period. To see what's happening on the ground on a more timely basis, let's have a look at what's happening to auction clearance rates as I have a chat with Dr. Andrew Wilson, Australia's leading housing economist and chief economist of myhousingmarket.com.au. Welcome, Andrew.
Thank you, Michael. Welcome to you.
Well, at the beginning of every month, we get the results of what happened a month or two ago with median house prices. But in our big capital cities, auction clearance rates are a better indication of what's happening on the ground in time, Andrew.
Yes, well, every Saturday night we do get those results coming through, Michael, and they are a very reliable forward indicator of underlying housing market activity, particularly in Sydney and Melbourne. And we've seen a particularly strong month over February in all of our capital city auction markets.
Well, the big two markets, Melbourne and Sydney, are more important because a very large percentage of properties are sold at auction, especially in the inner and middle ring suburbs. And now there's been a couple of weekends and the markets have been tested by quite some extra depth. There's a lot more listings, but Andrew, there's a lot more buyers out there too.
Yeah, it's been a big month for both Melbourne and Sydney auction markets. We've seen not just higher clearance rates, and clearance rates in Sydney were over 80% for the month, weekend clearance rates, and just under 80% in Melbourne. But we've seen a surge in listings. So not only lots of buyers around, but also lots of listings and properties coming into the market, with sellers confident, of course, of getting a good price with.
I'd call them boom time results, Andrew, because we don't get much higher than 80%. You may get a bit higher in various pockets. You may get a bit higher at certain times, but there's always going to be some properties that won't sell, either a problem with the property or the vendor's got unrealistic expectations.
Boom time is certainly that 80% benchmark we can refer to as a booming market. The highest clearance rates we've had in Sydney were back in 2014-15, and we actually had clearance rates pushing up towards 90%, but that was an extraordinary market. And the highest rates we've seen in Melbourne are around 85%. Certainly once we get over 80%, it is clearly a seller's market, and we do see higher prices with that very strong competition for property, where we're seeing upwards of 8 to 9 out of 10 properties sold under the hammer every weekend.
Well, there's markets within markets, and as we can see currently, the Sydney regions have been performing slightly differently.
If we compare both those clearance rates, the February clearance rates this year to last year, we can see the difference in the market. It's not just clearance rates that are higher. We can see a big jump in listing numbers, in turnover, and in the number of sales. So it really is a strong market across the board. And when we do look at the regional breakdowns, we can see again, as typically inner suburban areas, higher priced areas in Sydney are producing the highest clearance rates. Northern Beach has in fact had a clearance rate well over 90% over the month of February.
Melbourne's also started the year strongly. It's actually had the best year for 2 years, and clearance rates have been rising over the month at the time of surging listings. So even more properties going up for auction in the, auction capital of the world, Melbourne, Andrew.
Well, that's right, Michael. Last weekend we had Super Saturday, pre-Labor Day holiday weekend of auctions. We had nearly 1,400 auctions on that Saturday. So that was a significant test for the market. The clearance rates, again, were just under 80%. But when we look at the monthly results for regions in Melbourne, Michael, we can see that the outer suburbs are doing best, particularly the outer east, the northeast and the northern suburbs have produced the highest clearance rates. Interestingly enough, higher than the inner suburban regions, higher price regions. And look, that might be a factor of strong demand from first home buyers, particularly looking for those lower priced areas.
What these auction results are showing us is there's more depth in the market. There's more sellers in the market currently putting their properties up for sale so that they can upgrade it or downgrade or move. And there's definitely more buyers there. How is this translating into asking prices? Because that's another indication of what's happening in our property markets.
Well, no surprise, Michael, that strong auction clearance rates are reflecting strong asking prices. Asking price data for February has shown a big increase in Sydney and Melbourne. And if we look at the annual results, clearly Melbourne and Sydney have increased their median asking prices for houses at the fastest rate of any of the capital city markets. So there's plenty of momentum in the market at the moment. Michael, we've had another interest rate cut that will improve affordability, and of course confidence is sky high, and we still have lots of first home buyers out there looking to take advantage of the first home buyer deposit scheme. Plenty of momentum in the market. Prices are rising sharply still in Melbourne and Sydney, auction clearance rates at boom time levels, and sellers are certainly confident to test this market at the moment, and why wouldn't they?
I guess there's a flight to quality with the stock market being very volatile, with cash returns or bond returns being very low. Many people are now turning to the security of bricks and mortar, something that they're feeling more comfortable with. Let's see how things transpire over the month. Thanks for your time, Andrew.
Thanks, Michael.